My mother convinced everyone I had a behavioral disorder and force-fed me antipsychotics for money, so I gathered evidence and sent her to prison. Now she's up for parole, and someone just threatened to kill my sister if I don't stay quiet. I was 12 when my older sister Michaela was diagnosed with a behavioral disorder after she attacked her therapist. No one ever specified what the disorder actually was, just that it sort of turned her into a monster. Every morning, my mom told me we had to patrol her and make sure she swallowed all 3 pills. I thought it was a lot for a 15-year-old, but my mom insisted that that's what she needed to function best. My job was to examine her entire mouth and make sure no med was left behind. I was doom scrolling at 2 a.m. when my door creaked open. Michaela stumbled in, with her eyes glossed over. She could barely even speak. "Vera, I need you to trust me. I need a break from the medication. I can feel my brain turning into mush." By this point, there were tears in her eyes. My heart broke, because before all the medication kerfuffle, she was my best friend. She's the reason I understood anything in math class, and pretty much all my good jokes came from her humor. So against my better judgment, I agreed. A weak smile formed on her face, and she walked out without saying a word. So the next morning, as I stared into my sister's gaping hole that was her mouth, I saw the pills hidden and didn't say anything. For a few days, nothing really changed. She was still a walking zombie, and we didn't speak much. But after 2 weeks, I noticed her laughing more. Like, a lot more. Her smile could light up entire rooms again, and we were back to our dark humor. I knew things were really good when we were sitting on my bedroom floor, yapping and acting like idiots until 5 in the morning, but that's when my mom barged in. I immediately glanced over to Michaela, who suddenly tried to recreate the faraway look in her eyes, but it was too late. My mom was infuriated. "Have you been taking your meds?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Michaela nodded while rocking back and forth, something she hadn't done since the medication ended. My mom narrowed her eyes, and Michaela staggered back into her bed. I wish I had known that it was the last time I'd ever see her smile again. The next morning, Michaela never came down for breakfast. "She's sick," my mom said plainly, avoiding all eye contact. When I got home, Mom wasn't home, and I brought Michaela her favorite drink, Fairlife chocolate milk. When I walked in, she was awake, staring at the wall with a completely blank expression. She didn't even turn to look at me. I figured that maybe she just felt nauseous and wanted to be left alone. "Michaela attacked me this morning," my mom explained when I asked why she was acting so strange. "So I had to up her dosage to 5 pills. I stared at her in shock. "Don't you dare look at me like that. Look at what that beast did to me." She then proceeded to lift up her shirt and show me cuts covering her entire back. "She's crazy. And if you really want what's best, you'll stay away from her too." Fear ran through my body. I couldn't believe that that was my sister, the same girl I had spent all those years with. From there, I vowed to steer clear of her at all costs. And since Michaela had become a shell of a human, she didn't talk to me either. She couldn't go to school anymore and needed my mom's help with showering, eating, going on a walk, everything. I was literally only seeing her once a week during supervised playtime, where she'd watch me play Subway Surfers while my mom stood in the corner. And on her 16th birthday, I caught her doing something so horrific it made me question whether we were even related. She was pouring her medication down the toilet. "Mom, come now!" I screamed, my voice filled with terror. My mom sprinted up the stairs. As soon as she saw what was going on, she yanked Michaela into her room and locked it from the outside. My mom gave me a hug and stroked my face. "I'm so proud of you, honey." Within hours, 2 men arrived to take Vera to a specialized facility for medication-resistant patients. She fought them, screaming my name, begging me to understand. They sedated her right there in our living room. "You did the right thing," Mom said, hugging me. "Doctor, Harry says this place will fix her. They have special methods for girls who won't comply." That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. I snuck into Michaela's room and tears were streaming down my face. I thought of all the times we used to laugh, when our biggest problem was which one of us got to have the TV remote. That's when I spotted something glittery in the corner of my eye. I picked it up and it was her diary. I opened that shit so fast, lol. It was dated the day before her dosage was upped to 5 pills. I look more like our dad than Vera, and Mom hates me for it. She's lost her effing mind, and Vera believes every word she says. I'm scared. That was her last entry. My heart dropped. Suddenly, it all made sense. Why my sister had become so helpless. Why I wasn't allowed to talk to her. My mom wanted her to be a puppet. Full story on channel, link below. I needed to know more. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, searching for anything that could explain what was really happening. Hidden between math homework and doodles, I found entries from months ago that made my stomach turn. Mom's been different since Dad died. She looks at me like I'm him sometimes, and I can see the hate in her eyes. I kept reading, my heart pounding harder with each entry. There were pages torn out, but tucked behind the diary's back cover, I found folded papers covered in Michaela's handwriting. The dates went back 3 years. I found old photos today. Dad died when Vera was 2 and I was 5. Mom told everyone it was a car accident, but I remember that morning. I remember Dr. Harry being at our house the night before. He wasn't called Doctor Harry then, he was just Harry, Mom's friend, who helped with their marriage problems. My legs felt weak. I sat on Michaela's bed, continuing to read as tears blurred my vision. I remember Dad couldn't wake up that morning. He kept saying his coffee tasted funny. Mom told him he was being dramatic and needed to get to work. I watched from the stairs as he stumbled to his car. Mom was on the phone with Harry, laughing about something. 20 minutes later, the police called about the accident. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, I kept searching Michaela's room. Under her mattress, I found more hidden papers. These were different. They looked like medical documents, but something was off about them. Dr. Harry's signature was on all of them, but the handwriting changed between documents. I heard Mom's car in the driveway and quickly shoved everything back where I found it, but I kept one page, the one about Dad's death. I folded it small and tucked it into my sock. The next morning at breakfast, Mom watched me carefully. carefully. You look tired, honey. Everything okay? I forced myself to eat my cereal normally. Yeah, just couldn't sleep. Worried about Michaela. The facility called. She's adjusting well to their program. Mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. Doctor, Harry thinks you should come to a session with me today, just to talk about your feelings. My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. I have school. I already called them. Mental health day. She stood behind me, placing her hands on my shoulders. We need to make sure you're processing everything properly. Dr. Harry says trauma can manifest in strange ways, especially in siblings. After breakfast, I excused myself to pack my school bag, even though we weren't going to school. In my room, I grabbed my old iPod, the one from 5th grade that barely worked anymore. I shoved it in my pocket and made sure it was recording. Dr. Harry's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax place. No hospital, no medical building, just a plain door with a paper sign taped to it. Inside, it smelled like air freshener trying to cover something else. Vera! Dr. Harry smiled too wide. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with hair that looked like he cut it himself. Your mother's told me so much about you. I sat in the uncomfortable chair while Mom settled next to him, not across from him like a patient would, but right beside him. Their knees touched. Your mom's concerned you might be showing early signs of the same condition as your sister, Dr. Harry said, pulling out a prescription pad. It's genetic, you know. Better to catch it early. But I feel fine, I said, making sure my iPod was still recording in my pocket. Mom leaned forward. Honey, Michaela said the same thing, right before she attacked that poor therapist. And then me. She touched her back dramatically. We can't wait until you hurt someone. I would never. The medication is very mild, Dr. Harry interrupted, already writing. Just something to keep you balanced. Prevent any episodes. Mom took the prescription paper before I could even see it. We'll start you today. Just one med at first. On the drive home, Mom kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. You know, Vera, I'm only doing this because I love you. Because I can't lose another daughter to this illness. What about Dad? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Did he have the illness too? The car swerved slightly. Mom's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Why would you ask that? Just wondering, since it's genetic. Your father was troubled in different ways. Her voice was ice. We don't talk about him. At home, Mom presented me with a small white med and a glass of water. Take it. I put the med in my mouth and took a sip of water. Mom watched carefully, then had me open my mouth and lift my tongue. The med was tucked in my cheek, already starting to dissolve. The bitter taste made me want to gag. Good girl, Mom said, patting my head. Doctor, Harry will be pleased. As soon as she left the kitchen, I spit the dissolved med into a napkin and threw it in the trash. My mouth tasted horrible, but I was proud of myself for thinking fast. That night, I stayed up listening to the iPod recording. The quality was terrible, but I could make out Mom saying something about before she starts asking questions like Michaela did, and Dr. Harry responding with the same dosage should keep her manageable. Over the next few days, I perfected the art of fake med taking. I'd slip the med under my tongue or in my cheek, then spit it out later. But I made sure to act a little drowsy, a little slow. Mom seemed satisfied. By the end of the week, I noticed my food tasting different. Not bad, just off. My sandwich at lunch had a bitter aftertaste. My orange juice at breakfast left my mouth feeling numb. Even my favorite cookies tasted wrong. I started eating only things from sealed packages. Granola bars from my backpack, unopened bags of chips, sealed juice boxes. At dinner, I pushed food around my plate and took fake bites when Mom watched. You're not eating much, Mom observed one night as I played with my spaghetti. The medication makes me less hungry, I lied. Doctor, Harry said that might happen. She relaxed. That's normal. Your body's adjusting. I found more of Michaela's hidden notes in places I never would have thought to look. Inside old CD cases, taped under dresser drawers, folded inside books. Each one revealed more pieces of the truth. Harry had been Mom's marriage counselor. He'd been coming to the house for emergency sessions in the weeks before Dad died. Michaela had seen them kissing in the kitchen when Dad was at work. One note made my blood run cold. I told Mom I remembered about Dad and Harry. That's when she said I attacked the therapist, but I never did. I was just asking questions she didn't want to answer. A letter arrived from the facility, addressed to Mom. I steamed it open while she was at the grocery store, a trick Michaela had taught me years ago. The letter was typed on official-looking letterhead. Mrs. Morrison, Michaela continues to resist treatment. She refuses meals unless physically assisted. Staff reports she repeatedly asks if her sister is safe. This fixation on her sibling suggests deeper delusions than initially assessed. We recommend increasing her dosage and limiting phone privileges until she shows improvement. I carefully resealed the letter and put it back in the mail pile. That night, I heard Mom on the phone with someone. She's getting suspicious, she said. We need to move faster. Thanksgiving was coming up, and Mom mentioned Aunt Leslie would visit. Leslie was Dad's sister. We barely saw her anymore. Mom always said it was too painful for her, that Leslie reminded her too much of Dad. I wrote a note on small paper. Aunt Leslie, Mom is lying about everything. Michaela isn't sick. Neither am I. Please help us. Check Dad's death certificate. Harry was involved. Don't let Mom see this. I folded it tiny and kept it in my shoe, waiting for the right moment. When Leslie arrived, she looked older than I remembered, tired. She hugged me carefully, like I might break. How are you holding up, sweetie? She asked when Mom went to the kitchen. I slipped my hand toward my shoe, but Mom appeared in the doorway. Vera, why don't you help me with the turkey? In the kitchen, Mom kept me busy with tasks. Every time I tried to get near Leslie, Mom found something else for me to do. Finally, during dinner, I dropped my fork and bent to get it, planning to pass the note under the table. Mom's hand clamped on my wrist. I've got it, honey. She picked up the fork and must have seen me reaching for my shoe because her eyes narrowed. Actually, Vera's been feeling tired. The medication, you know. Why don't you go rest? Medication? Leslie looked confused. What medication? Mom's laugh was forced. Oh, didn't I mention? Vera's been showing some concerning behaviors, writing disturbing stories about the family, making up lies. Dr. Harry says it's the same condition Michaela has. I opened my mouth to protest, but Mom's grip on my shoulder was a warning. Go rest, sweetheart, now. From my room, I heard Mom talking to Leslie in low tones. I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. She wrote this elaborate fantasy about me being responsible for David's death, Mom was saying. Can you imagine? Her own father. Dr. Harry says it's a coping mechanism, creating villains to explain the loss. Can I see these stories? Leslie asked. Doctor, Harry has them, for analysis. He's been wonderful through all this. Did you know he's published papers on adolescent behavioral disorders? I searched for information about Dr. Harry on Mom's laptop while she was distracted with Leslie. What I found made my stomach drop. Dr. Harold Fitzgerald lost his license in Pennsylvania for inappropriate conduct with minor patients. Harry Feldman had his license revoked in Ohio for practicing without proper credentials. Harrison Finch was under investigation in Michigan for insurance fraud. All the photos looked like our doctor, Harry, with slightly different haircuts. The next morning, Leslie left early. Mom said she had a family emergency, but I saw Mom slip something into her coffee before she woke up looking confused and disoriented. Dr. Harry started coming to the house every day. He'd watch me take my pills, or pretend to take them. I was getting better at hiding them, but it was harder with him watching. You seem tense, he said one afternoon. Your mother mentioned you've been writing stories. Just for school, I lied. I'd love to read them. I fancy myself a bit of a writer too. His smile made my skin crawl. In fact, I'm writing a paper about family dynamics and behavioral disorders. Your family would make a fascinating case study. Mom came in with tea. Harry's being modest. He's getting grant money for his research. Cutting-edge stuff about managing difficult teenagers. I excused myself to the bathroom and checked Mom's room while they talked. In her closet, hidden in a shoebox, I found her journal. My hands shook as I read. Harry says the payments will continue as long as both girls are in the study. $5,000 per month per child. Michaela's placement costs $3,000, so that's profit. Once Vera's placed, we'll have $7,000 monthly after expenses, enough to finally leave this house and David's memory behind. There were bank statements showing deposits from something called Behavioral Research Institute, the same amount every month since Michaela was taken away. I took photos with my iPod, its ancient camera barely working but good enough. That night, Mom announced I'd have a phone session with Michaela for Thanksgiving. Supervised, of course. The facility says she's been asking about you. My heart raced. Michaela and I had a code from when we were little, a game where we'd speak in opposites when Mom was being especially mean. If she said I hate chocolate, she meant she loved it. If she said I'm so happy, she was sad. The call came the next evening. Mom put it on speaker, sitting right next to me. Hi, Michaela, I said, my voice shaking. Vera. Her voice was flat, drugged. I'm doing terribly here. The food is disgusting, just like Mom's cooking. Mom frowned but said nothing. I understood. Michaela was saying she was doing well and the food was good, which meant Mom's cooking was disgusting. She was still herself under the substances. I never want to see you again, Michaela continued. Remember when we played that stupid game where everything was opposite? I hated that game. My eyes filled with tears. She loved that game. She wanted to see me. She remembered. The doctors here are so honest, Michaela said, just like Mom. And I'm so glad, Doctor. Harry helped me get better. Everything was a lie. The doctors were lying. Mom was lying. Dr. Harry had made her worse. That's enough, Mom said suddenly. Say goodbye, Vera. I hate you, I said quickly, meaning I love you. I hate you more, Michaela replied before the line went dead. Mom studied my face. You two were always so close. It's sad how illness changes people. That night, Mom locked my bedroom door from the outside. Just a precaution, she called through the door. Doctor, Harry thinks you might try to hurt yourself. We can't be too careful. I spent 3 days locked in that room. Mom brought me water and pills, watching me take each one. I got creative, hiding them in the lining of my pillowcase, in the spine of books, anywhere I could. But I was running out of places, and the pills were making me feel strange even from the brief contact with my mouth. On the third night, I used a bobby pin to pick the lock, another skill Michaela had taught me during our spy phase when I was 8. The window in the hallway was painted shut, but Michaela's room had one that still opened. I grabbed my backpack and stuffed it with all the evidence I'd collected. Diary pages, photos of Mom's journal, the letter from the facility, my iPod with the recordings. Then I climbed out onto the roof. Mrs. Bennett lived 3 houses down. She used to babysit us when we were little, before she retired. Michaela always said she was the smartest person she knew, a social worker who'd seen everything. I knocked on her door at midnight, shivering in my pajamas. Vera? She pulled me inside immediately. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Everything poured out. I showed her the evidence, played the recordings, explained about the pills and the lies and Dad's death. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each revelation. I still have contacts at CPS, she said finally. Stay here. Don't answer the door for anyone except me. Within an hour, Mom was pounding on Mrs. Bennett's door. I know she's in there. She's sick, Mrs. Bennett. She needs her medication. She's dangerous. Mrs. Bennett opened the door but stood firmly in the doorway. She's not going anywhere until CPS arrives. You're kidnapping a mentally ill child, Mom screamed. I'll call the police. Please do, Mrs. Bennett said calmly. I'm sure they'd love to hear about Dr. Harry's medical licenses, or lack thereof. Mom's face went white. You don't understand. She's sick like her sister. Dr. Harry is helping them. Is that why you've been drugging her food? Mrs. Bennett held up one of the granola bars I'd brought. Vera was smart enough to save these. I'm having them tested. A car pulled up, the CPS worker. Mom tried to intercept her, talking fast about my supposed illness, about the stories I'd been writing, about how Mrs. Bennett was enabling my delusions. The CPS worker, Ms. Rodriguez, separated us. She interviewed me in Mrs. Bennett's kitchen while Mom waited in the living room with Mrs. Bennett watching her. I showed Ms. Rodriguez everything. She took photos of the documents and made copies of the recordings. When she asked about Michaela's medical records, Mom couldn't produce them. Doctor, Harry has them, Mom said desperately. He'll explain everything. But when Ms. Rodriguez called the number Mom provided, it was disconnected. The office address Mom gave didn't exist. "We need to see Michaela immediately," Ms. Rodriguez said, "and I need Dr. Harry's full credentials." Mom broke down, not crying, but angry. "You don't understand what I've been through, raising two difficult girls alone. David left me with nothing but debt and memories. Harry's research grants were the only thing keeping us afloat." The investigation moved quickly after that. The facility where Michaela was held was real, but they'd been told she was violent and delusional. When real doctors examined her, they found she'd been heavily over-medicated with antipsychotics she never needed. Dr. Harry, whose real name was Harold Finkelstein, had been running the same scam in multiple states. He'd find single mothers with financial problems and convince them their children had behavioral disorders. The research grants were just him funneling money from desperate families who paid for his specialized treatment. 3 other families came forward when his photo was circulated, all teenage girls, all supposedly violent, all drugged into compliance. Michaela was transferred to a real hospital where actual doctors began the careful process of weaning her off the cocktail of medications. I was allowed to visit after a week. She was still foggy, but she smiled when she saw me. "You figured it out," she whispered. "I knew you would. You were always the smart one. You left me clues," I said, holding her hand. "The diary pages, the notes. I wrote them when I could think clearly, between doses." She squeezed my hand weakly. "Is Mom arrested? And Dr. Harry? They're both going to prison." Michaela closed her eyes. "Good." Aunt Leslie became our guardian. She'd been suspicious for years, but Mom had always kept her at arm's length. She showed us photos of Dad we'd never seen, told us stories Mom had hidden. He'd been planning to divorce Mom when he died. He'd known about the affair. "I always wondered about that car accident," Leslie said. "David was the most careful driver I knew, and the autopsy showed high levels of a sedative, but the police said he must have taken it for anxiety. The trial was hard. I had to testify about everything I'd seen and heard." Mom stared at me from the defendant's table like I was the one who'd betrayed her. Dr. Harry, Harold, pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. 15 years for fraud, practicing without a license, and child endangerment. Mom got 12 years. The judge said she'd violated the most sacred trust, that between a mother and her children. She'd chosen money over our well-being, romance over our safety. 6 months later, Michaela was back in school. The real Michaela, funny, brilliant, kind. She had to repeat a year, but she didn't care. "I'm just glad I can think again," she said. I joined the debate team, surprising myself by choosing to speak about medical abuse in my first competition. "People think it can't happen in normal families," I said to the judges. "They think someone would notice. But when the person who's supposed to protect you is the one hurting you, who do you tell?" We won that debate. Michaela was in the audience, cheering louder than anyone. We still live with Aunt Leslie. She never makes us take any medication we don't need. She trusts us to tell her how we're feeling. And every night at dinner, we eat food that tastes exactly like it should. No hidden pills, no bitter aftertaste, no secrets dissolved in our drinks. Sometimes I think about Mom in prison. I wonder if she ever really loved us, or if we were always just a source of income to her. Michaela says it doesn't matter now. What matters is we're safe, we're together, and we're finally free to be ourselves. The other day, Michaela helped me with my algebra homework. She's still the best math tutor I know. And when she cracked a joke that made me laugh so hard I cried, I remembered why I'd risked everything to save her. She wasn't a monster. She never was. She was just a girl who asked too many questions, who remembered too much, who looked too much like the man our mother wanted to forget. And in the end, that's what saved us both. Asking questions, remembering the truth, and refusing to swallow the lies we were fed. The weeks after the trial were harder than I expected. Aunt Leslie tried to make things normal for us, but nothing felt right. Michaela would wake up screaming some nights, convinced Mom was forcing pills down her throat. I'd find her in the bathroom, checking behind the toilet to make sure no medication was hidden there. "It's okay," I'd tell her, rubbing her back. "She can't hurt us anymore." But even I had trouble believing it sometimes. Every bitter taste in food made me panic. Every unexpected knock at the door sent my heart racing. School became my escape. The debate team gave me purpose, and Ms. Davidson, the counselor Mom had tried to manipulate, became one of my biggest supporters. She felt terrible about not believing me initially, and made sure I had someone to talk to whenever things got overwhelming. One afternoon, I was practicing my speech about medical abuse in the empty auditorium when someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned to see a girl about Michaela's age standing in the doorway. "Are you Vera Morrison?" she asked quietly. I nodded, suddenly wary. "I'm Benji. My sister was one of Dr. Harry's other victims." She stepped closer, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "I heard about your speech topic. I was wondering if maybe we could talk?" We sat in the auditorium seats as Benji told me her story. Her sister Min had been 13 when their mother started taking her to Dr. Harry. The pattern was eerily familiar. Behavioral problems that didn't exist, increasing medications, a compliant parent receiving payments. "Min's still in recovery," Benji said. "She can barely remember 2 years of her life. The substances everything was erased." "How did you find out?" I asked. "I didn't. Not until after your case made the news. My mom just told me Min was at a special boarding school." Benji's hands clenched. I believed her. I should have known something was wrong. "You couldn't have known," I said, remembering my own guilt. "They're really good at lying." Benji pulled out her phone. "There's actually a group of us now, siblings and victims. We meet online every week. Would you and Michaela want to join?" That night, I told Michaela about Benji. She was painting her nails, something she couldn't do when her hands shook from medication. A support group? She considered it. Maybe. It might help to talk to people who actually understand. The first online meeting was awkward. There were 8 of us, some victims, some siblings. But as people started sharing their stories, I realized we all carried the same wounds. The guilt of not seeing it sooner. The anger at being betrayed by people who should have protected us. The fear that it could somehow happen again. A girl named Victi spoke spoke about how her mother had convinced everyone she had violent tendencies. I was 11, she said. The most violent thing I'd ever done was slam my bedroom door, but Dr. Harry had my mom convinced I was dangerous. My mom said the same thing, Michaela added quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken in the meeting. She told everyone I attacked people, but I never hurt anyone. I just asked why she was so different after Dad died. The group became our lifeline. We shared recovery tips, celebrated small victories, and held each other up on bad days. Benji and I grew especially close, texting daily about everything from homework to healing. But not everyone was supportive of our recovery. 3 months after the trial, I started getting anonymous letters at school. The first one was tucked into my locker. Your mother loved you. You destroyed her life with your lies. I showed it to Aunt Leslie, who immediately contacted the police. They increased patrols around our house and the school, but the letters kept coming. She was trying to help you. Now she's rotting in prison because you're an ungrateful brat. Michaela found that one in our mailbox. Her hands shook as she read it, and I saw the fear creeping back into her eyes. What if Mom has friends? She whispered. What if someone tries to hurt us? Aunt Leslie installed a security system and cameras around the house. She changed our phone numbers and made sure the school knew not to release any information about us. But the letters found their way to us anyway. The worst one came on Mom's birthday. She cries every night in her cell. She only wanted what was best for you. You'll regret this when you have children of your own. That letter was different. The handwriting looked familiar. When I showed it to the police officer assigned to our case, he frowned. We'll analyze the handwriting, he said, but this might be from someone in the prison. The thought of Mom orchestrating harassment from her cell made me feel sick. Even locked up, she was trying to control us. Ms. Davidson helped me channel my fear into my debate speeches. Use it, she said. Show people how abusers continue their manipulation even after they're caught. The regional debate competition was coming up, and I'd been selected to represent our school. My speech had evolved from just medical abuse to the broader topic of coercive control in families. The other members of our support group shared their stories for me to include, with their permission. 2 weeks before the competition, Michaela had a setback. She'd been doing so well, catching up in school, laughing more, even starting to date a nice boy from her chemistry class. But then she got food poisoning from bad cafeteria fish. The vomiting and disorientation triggered something deep. When I found her, she was curled in the bathroom corner, sobbing. The room is spinning like when I was on the pills, she gasped. I can't make it stop. I sat with her for hours, reminding her it was just food poisoning, that no one had drugged her, but the damage was done. She stopped eating cafeteria food, then restaurant food, then anything she hadn't prepared herself. I know it's irrational, she told our therapist, but I can't shake the feeling that someone's trying to medicate me again. Aunt Leslie was patient, helping Michaela prepare all her own meals and pack lunches, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Recovery wasn't linear, the therapist reminded us. There would be setbacks. The anonymous letters had stopped after the police got involved, but their effect lingered. I found myself checking locks obsessively, startling at unexpected noises. Benji understood. She did the same things. It's like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, she said during one of our video calls. Even though they're in prison, it feels like they're still watching. The week before regionals, I practiced my speech obsessively. Michaela helped when she felt up to it, offering suggestions and cheering me on. She was determined to be in the audience, even though crowds had started making her anxious. You saved my life, she said simply. The least I can do is watch you tell our story. But 3 days before the competition, everything almost fell apart. I was walking home from school when a woman approached me. She looked normal enough, middle-aged, well-dressed, tired eyes. Vera Morrison? She asked. I took a step back, ready to run. Who's asking? I'm Doctor Harry's wife, former wife, she corrected quickly. I wanted to apologize. I stood frozen, unsure whether to scream or sprint. She held up her hands. I'm not here to hurt you. I needed you to know that I didn't know about what he was doing. I thought he was helping troubled kids. He destroyed lives, I said, my voice shaking. I know that now. Tears ran down her face. When the truth came out, I realized there were signs I ignored. Times he came home with too much cash. Families that suddenly cut contact. I should have questioned it. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a daughter. She's 8. And when I thought about someone doing to her what Harold did to you and your sister, she pulled out an envelope. This is information about other families he might have targeted. People who never came forward. Maybe it can help them. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were names, dates, and notes in Dr. Harry's handwriting about potential subjects for his research. I'm testifying against him in the federal case, she continued. I wanted you to know that not everyone in his life enabled him. Some of us were just blind. After she left, I called Aunt Leslie immediately. She contacted our lawyer, who passed the information to investigators. Within days, 4 more families had come forward. The support group was divided about Dr. Harry's ex-wife. Some thought she must have known. Others, like Benji, believed people could be manipulated into blindness. My mom genuinely thought she was helping Min, Benji said. It wasn't until the truth came out that she realized she'd been used. She hasn't forgiven herself. That raised uncomfortable questions. How many parents had been manipulated versus how many had been willing participants? In Mom's case, the journal entries made it clear she knew exactly what she was doing. But what about the others? Michaela didn't want to think about it. They're adults, she said flatly. They should have protected us. End of story. The night before regionals, I couldn't sleep. I kept revising my speech, adding details about the ongoing impact of medical abuse. Michaela found me at 3 a.m., surrounded by note cards. You're going to be amazing, she said, sitting beside me. You're telling the truth. That's all that matters. What if people don't believe me? What if they think we're just bitter kids making up stories? Then they're not worth convincing. She picked up one of my note cards. But most people will believe you, because you're not just telling our story. You're telling theirs too. The competition venue was packed. I saw Aunt Leslie in the 3rd row, with Michaela beside her wearing sunglasses to help with the bright lights. Benji had driven 2 hours to be there, sitting with some other members of our support group. When they called my name, my legs felt like jelly. But then I saw Michaela give me a small thumbs up, and I found my strength. We trust medicine to heal us, I began. We trust parents to protect us. But what happens when those trusts are weaponized against children? I told our story, but also Benji's, Min's, Victi's, and the others who'd shared their experiences. I talked about the long-term effects, the anxiety, the trust issues, the fear of seeking legitimate medical help. Medical abuse in families isn't rare, I continued. It's hidden. It thrives in the shadows of shame and disbelief, because who would believe a child over a concerned parent and a doctor? I explained the warning signs: isolation, excessive medication, parents who seem too invested in their child being ill, doctors who operate outside normal channels. I talked about the financial incentives that drove people like Dr. Harry to exploit vulnerable families. Recovery isn't just about stopping the medication, I said, my voice growing stronger. It's about rebuilding trust in a world that failed to protect us. It's about learning that food can be safe, that doctors can help, that parents can love without conditions. I caught Michaela's eye. She'd removed her sunglasses, tears streaming down her face. My sister spent 3 years in a medicated haze because she remembered something inconvenient, because she looked too much like someone my mother wanted to forget, because a man with fake credentials saw an opportunity to profit from our pain. The room was silent. Even the judges seemed affected, but we survived. We spoke up. We found people who believed us. I looked at Aunt Leslie, at Mrs. Bennett who'd surprised us by attending, at the social worker who'd saved us. And now we speak for those still trapped in medicated silence, because asking questions isn't a disorder, remembering the truth isn't a symptom, and refusing to swallow lies isn't a disease. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. But more importantly, I saw understanding in faces throughout the audience. After the competition, several people approached me with their own stories of medical manipulation they'd witnessed or experienced. I won second place, which felt like a victory. The girl who won had spoken about refugee rights with a passion that deserved first. But the real prize came later, when a woman pulled me aside. "I'm a pediatric nurse," she said quietly. "Your speech. It's going to change how I look at certain cases. Thank you for the education." On the drive home, Michaela was quiet. Finally, she spoke. "I'm proud of you, but I'm also angry." "Why?" "Because we shouldn't have to be this strong. We shouldn't have to educate adults about protecting children. We should have just been kids." She was right. The weight of survival had aged us both. While our classmates worried about grades and dating, we worried about trust and trauma. It wasn't fair, but fairness wasn't the point anymore. Healing was. The next week, our support group celebrated the speech's success. Min had started talking more, inspired by hearing her story shared. Victi was applying to colleges, determined to become a real therapist to counteract people like Dr. Harry. "We're taking back our narratives," Benji said. "That's powerful." But with progress came new challenges. Michaela's boyfriend broke up with her, saying her issues were too much to handle. She pretended it didn't hurt, but I heard her crying that night. "Maybe I'm too damaged for normal relationships," she said when I hugged her. "You're not damaged," I insisted. "You're healing, and anyone who can't see your strength doesn't deserve you." She laughed bitterly. "Strength, is that what we're calling it? Because most days I feel like I'm barely holding together." I understood. Some days, the weight of what we'd survived felt crushing. The knowledge that our own mother had chosen money over our well-being, that adults who should have noticed had looked away, that we'd lost years we couldn't get back. But we kept going. What choice did we have? 3 months after regionals, I got accepted into a summer program for young advocates. They'd seen a video of my speech and wanted me to help develop resources for identifying medical abuse in families. "You're 15, Aunt Leslie said, amazed. "You shouldn't have to be doing this work. Someone has to," I replied, "and I understand it in ways adults don't." Michaela was doing better. She'd started seeing a therapist who specialized in medical trauma. Slowly, she was expanding her food comfort zone, trusting that not everything was a threat. "I ate pizza from a restaurant yesterday," she announced proudly at dinner one night. Granted, I watched them make it, but still, progress. We celebrated every small victory, each meal eaten without fear, each night slept without nightmares, each day that felt a little more normal than the last. The anonymous letters had stopped completely after the handwriting analysis revealed they were from another inmate Mom had befriended. Apparently, she'd convinced this woman that we were ungrateful daughters who'd abandoned a loving mother. The woman was disciplined, and Mom lost her correspondence privileges. "She's still trying to control the narrative," our lawyer explained. "Even from prison, she wants to be the victim." But we were done being controlled. Our stories were ours to tell. As summer approached, I prepared for the advocacy program while Michaela got ready for senior year. She decided to pursue psychology in college, wanting to understand the minds that could justify such harm. "Maybe if I understand it, I can prevent it," she said. Our support group had grown to nearly 20 members. We'd created resources, shared coping strategies, and built a community of understanding. What had started as pain was transforming into purpose. One evening, as we sat on Aunt Leslie's porch eating ice cream, store-bought, sealed containers only for Michaela, she turned to me. "You know what's weird? I'm almost grateful." I raised an eyebrow. "Grateful? Not for what happened. Never for that. But for who we've become because of it. We're warriors, Vera. We know how to fight for truth." How many people can say that? I thought about it. We'd lost our childhood innocence, yes, but we'd gained something else. An unshakable knowledge of our own strength. We'd faced manipulation, medical abuse, and betrayal from the person who should have protected us most. And we'd survived. More than survived. We were thriving. "Plus," Michaela added with a grin, "you're going to change the world with your advocacy work. And I'm going to make sure no therapist can ever do what Dr. Harry did again. We're turning our trauma into transformation." She was right. Our story didn't end with rescue. It continued with recovery, with purpose, with the determination to protect others others from what we'd endured. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of hope, I realized something. Mom had tried to silence us with pills and lies. Dr. Harry had tried to erase us with his fake disorders and real substances, but we'd found our voices anyway, and we were never going to be quiet again. The next morning brought a new challenge. A reporter wanted to interview us for a documentary about medical abuse in families. Aunt Leslie was hesitant, but Michaela and I discussed it with our therapists. It's your choice, they said, but consider what you hope to achieve and whether you're emotionally ready for that exposure. We decided to participate, but with conditions. No sensationalism, no portraying Mom as a monster without acknowledging the systematic failures that enabled her, no reducing us to victims without showing our recovery. The interview was harder than expected. Reliving everything on camera, seeing Michaela struggle with certain questions, watching Aunt Leslie tear up as she described the guilt of not realizing sooner, it all felt raw again. But when the reporter asked what message we wanted to share, Michaela spoke clearly. Trust children. When they say something's wrong, investigate. Don't assume parents always know best, or that doctors are always right. We spent years screaming silently for help. Someone should have heard us sooner. I added, and for kids going through this, document everything. Tell trusted adults. Keep telling until someone listens. You're not crazy. You're not bad. You deserve to be heard and helped. The documentary wouldn't air for months, but participating felt like another step in reclaiming our narrative. We weren't just victims in someone else's story. We were survivors writing our own. As sophomore year ended and summer began, I threw myself into the advocacy program. I met other young activists, some who'd survived different forms of abuse, others who'd witnessed injustices they couldn't ignore. You're all so young to be doing this work, the program director said on the first day, but that's exactly why we need you. You see what adults miss. You speak truths adults avoid. I learned about policy, about systems change, about turning personal experience into broader impact. Every night I'd call Michaela and share what I'd learned. We're going to make sure this never happens to anyone else, I'd say. One saved kid at a time, she'd reply, because that's what it came down to. We couldn't change what happened to us, but we could change what happened next. We could be the advocates we'd needed, the voices that refused to be silenced, the proof that survival was possible. Our story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more setbacks, more days when the weight of trauma felt unbearable, but there would also be more victories, more healing, more moments of joy that Mom and Dr. Harry had tried to steal from us. We were no longer the girls who swallowed lies. We were the young women who spoke truth, and that made all the difference. The summer advocacy program started in 2 days, but I couldn't focus on packing. Something about the documentary interview kept nagging at me. The reporter had asked about other victims, and I'd mentioned the envelope from Dr. Harry's ex-wife, but when I went to retrieve it from my desk drawer, it was gone. I tore my room apart searching. Under the bed, behind the dresser, in every pocket of every jacket. Nothing. My hands shook as I checked the security camera footage on Aunt Leslie's computer. There, at 3:47 a.m. 2 nights ago, a figure in dark clothing had jimmied our back door and moved through the house with practiced ease. Aunt Leslie called the police immediately. The officer who arrived looked grim as he reviewed the footage. Professional job, he said. They knew exactly where the cameras were, stayed in blind spots mostly. We only caught them because they had to cross this hallway. Who would want those documents? Aunt Leslie asked. I already knew. If more families came forward, Dr. Harry's sentence could be extended. Mom's too, if they proved she knew about the other victims. Someone had a vested interest in keeping those names hidden. The next morning, Michaela found a business card tucked under her windshield wiper. Katharine Consulting, Family Advocacy Services. No address, just a phone number. When she showed it to me, my blood ran cold. Katharine. Dr. Harry's ex-wife had mentioned that was her daughter's middle name. I called the number from Aunt Leslie's phone, recording the conversation on my laptop. A woman answered on the first ring. Miss Morrison, I've been expecting your call. Who is this? Someone who believes we can help each other. I have information about your mother's associates, people who are still very interested in Dr. Harry's research. You have names I need. Perhaps we can trade. I don't have anything. I lied. The envelope my employer gave you says otherwise. Meet me at Riverside Park, noon tomorrow. Come alone. The line went dead. Aunt Leslie was already shaking her head, but I had to know who was behind this. We compromised. I'd go, but with plainclothes police nearby and a wire. Riverside Park was crowded with summer lunch breakers. I sat on the designated bench trying to look casual while my heart hammered. A woman approached. Mid-40s, expensive suit, cold eyes, not Dr. Harry's ex-wife. The envelope, she said, sitting beside me. First, tell me who you are. She smiled thinly. I represent parties interested in Dr. Harry's research methodology. His work, while legally questionable, produced valuable data on adolescent behavioral modification. My clients would like to continue that research through more legitimate channels. You mean drugging kids? I mean helping troubled youth through pharmaceutical intervention. She pulled out a thick folder. Your mother kept meticulous records, not just about you and your sister, but about the 12 other families Dr. Harry was grooming. If those families come forward, it complicates things for everyone. Good, I said. They deserve justice. Do they? Or would they prefer to move on quietly, with compensation? She opened the folder, revealing bank statements. $50,000 per family to stay quiet. Your mother was supposed to facilitate this, but her incarceration complicated things. I felt sick. Mom hadn't just sold us out. She'd been planning to sell out other victims too. The police know I'm here, I said. I'm aware. That's why I'm only making an offer, not a threat. She stood, leaving the folder. Those families could use the money. Medical bills, therapy costs, education funds. Think about what helps them more. A lengthy trial that re-traumatizes their children, or financial security. After she left, I grabbed the folder and ran. The police intercepted her in the parking lot, but she had a lawyer present within minutes. Everything she'd done was technically legal. Making an offer, sharing confirming information. The investigation hit a wall, but I had the folder, 12 names, addresses, contact information. That night, our support group held an emergency meeting. I shared everything, and we debated fiercely. We have to warn them, Benji insisted. They're trying to buy silence. Maybe some families need that money, Min said quietly. Not everyone can afford recovery. Victi slammed her hand on her desk. Blood money. That's what it is. Taking it means Dr. Harry wins. We voted 8-3 in favor of contacting the families. I spent the next day calling each one, explaining the situation. The responses varied wildly. One mother broke down crying. He has my daughter, right now. I didn't know who else to call. Her 13-year-old Jamie had been seeing a Dr. Harrison for 6 months. Same pattern, same pills, same promises of research grants. I gave her Ms. Rodriguez's direct number. Within hours, CPS and police had intervened. Dr. Harrison was Dr. Harry's former colleague, using his methods. Jamie was removed from the harmful treatment immediately. 3 families took the money. I couldn't blame them. One had a child who needed surgery. Another was facing eviction. They signed NDAs and disappeared from our radar. But 8 families joined our fight, adding their testimonies to the federal case. The advocacy program started amidst this chaos. I almost didn't go, but Michaela pushed me. This is exactly why you need to be there, she said. You're living this fight. Your voice matters. The program was intense. 8 hours a day learning about policy, law, and systemic change. I was the youngest participant by 3 years, but my lived experience gave me insights others lacked. When we did mock testimony before a panel, I didn't need to imagine the stakes. I'd lived them. 2 weeks in, I got a call from Aunt Leslie. Michaela's missing. I left immediately, my program director driving me home. Michaela's car was in the driveway, her phone on her bed, but she was gone. The security footage showed her leaving willingly at 6 a.m., getting into a car with someone. Then I saw the note on my pillow, checking out a lead, back soon, M. I knew immediately where she'd gone. One of the families who'd taken the money had mentioned seeing their daughter's new therapist at a medical building downtown. Michaela had been obsessing over it, convinced it was another Dr. Harry copycat. I found her car parked outside a strip mall medical complex. Inside, she was in a waiting room, pretending to read a magazine while watching a door marked Dr. Finch, Adolescent Behavioral Services. Are you insane? I hissed, sitting beside her. Look around, she whispered back. I did. 3 teenage girls, all with the same glassy-eyed look I remembered too well. Their parents sat separately, filling out paperwork that looked suspiciously familiar. I called the police, Michaela said, but I needed to see for myself, to know it's still happening. Dr. Finch emerged, young, friendly, nothing like Dr. Harry on the surface, but I saw him slip something to a mother, saw her pocket what looked like cash. The pattern was evolving, becoming harder to detect. The police arrived quietly, not wanting to traumatize the kids, but their investigation found nothing immediately illegal. Dr. Finch had real credentials, real prescriptions, real medical justification for everything. Without proof of kickbacks or false diagnoses, they couldn't act. This is why I'm studying psychology, Michaela said as we drove home. Someone needs to be inside the system, watching for the Dr. Harrys and Dr. Finches. The rest of summer flew by. The advocacy program culminated in presenting policy recommendations to state legislators. My proposal, mandatory second opinions for adolescent behavioral medications and regular audits of doctors prescribing high volumes of antipsychotics to minors, got serious consideration. Meanwhile, the federal case against Dr. Harry expanded. With the new families testifying, prosecutors uncovered a network of doctors using his methods across 6 states. Some, like Dr. Finch, had learned to hide their tracks better, but the pattern was clear. Vulnerable families, financial incentives, and children silenced by medication. Michaela started her senior year with new determination. She'd been accepted early to a pre-med program, her essay about surviving medical abuse apparently moving admissions committees. I want to be the doctor I needed, she told me, the one who asks real questions. I threw myself into junior year and debate team. My speeches evolved from personal narrative to policy arguments. At state championships, I placed first with a presentation on mandatory reporting requirements for suspected medical abuse. But the threats hadn't stopped. They'd just gotten smarter. Instead of letters, we'd find things moved in our rooms. Instead of direct contact, there were whispered conversations that stopped when we approached. Someone was still watching, still trying to intimidate us into silence. Then, 2 weeks before the holidays, everything accelerated. Mom had been scheduled for a parole hearing, her lawyer arguing that 12 years was excessive for a misguided mother trying to help her children. We'd submitted victim impact statements, but the parole board seemed sympathetic to her Reformed Mother Act. The morning of the hearing, I woke to find my laptop missing. All my advocacy work, all the evidence I'd gathered about the continuing network, gone. But I'd learned from Michaela's example. Everything was backed up to 3 different cloud services. At the hearing, Mom looked different, thinner, older, but with the same calculating eyes. She spoke about her remorse, her realization that she'd been manipulated by Dr. Harry, her desire to rebuild relationships with her daughters. I was a victim too, she said, tears streaming. Harold preyed on my grief over David's death, my financial desperation, my fear of raising troubled girls alone. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. My mother drugged my father's coffee the morning he died. She watched him stumble to his car, knowing he couldn't drive safely. She did it because he'd discovered her affair with Harold Finkelstein, the man she later let experiment on her children for money. The parole board shifted uncomfortably. Mom's lawyer objected, but I continued. She's not reformed. 3 weeks ago, someone broke into our house to steal evidence about Dr. Harry's network. 2 weeks ago, my laptop with all my advocacy work disappeared. Yesterday, I received this. I pulled out my phone, showing a text from an unknown number. Stop talking or Michaela has an accident. I don't know if my mother sent this directly or through associates, but I know the pattern. Control through fear, silence through threats. She hasn't changed. changed. She's just adapted. The board denied parole. Mom would serve at least 6 more years before another hearing. As they let her out, she looked at me with such hatred that the bailiff stepped between us. Outside the courthouse, Aunt Leslie hugged me tight. "You're braver than any child should have to be." "Not brave," I corrected. "Just tired of being afraid."